Welcome to the Bark Night Podcast. This is episode 32, and I am your host, Patrick, and I have with me here Dan.
Hello, everyone.
Or as I like to call him this week, Kevin Smith, because he's wearing a hockey jersey.
You know it. Gotta rep the Sabres even though they are terrible.
So this week for our episode, we are doing a blind spots feature. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is blind spots? So this is from a phrase that Dan has coined on the podcast where we reference things that are unseen by one or both of us that should have been seen by now. So we decided to design an entire episode around that idea. So we're going to start with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974, which I have not seen for whatever reason. It has just evaded me all of these years. Dan has seen it. After that, we're going to jump into the movie Near Dark, which I have seen, but even so, I didn't see it up until last year, and Dan has never seen it. And then we're going to finish the episode off with Gerald's Game, which neither of us has seen. So, without further ado, let's talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974. So, this movie spawned 4 sequels, 2 prequels, 1 remake, and 1 prequel to said remake, all creating a sloppy mess of continuity that needs a diagram to be understood at this point.
Right. There's a Matthew McConaughey in there at some point. There's a Renee Zellweger maybe at the same point, but they're in there.
I've seen that one. I think they're both in the same one. That's
Next
Generation, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There's other media that they've done as well. So there's 1 book, 3 video games, several comics, and 1 theme park attraction coming later this year as part of Universal Horror Unleashed.
Okay. What's that going to be? Like a roller coaster or like an experience? Probably like go through the house, I assume?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
That'd be my guess.
We haven't gotten a lot of information on that. They haven't even shown all of the monsters yet. But I did go to Universal Studios last year, and they had like teasers up and whatnot. But I'd imagine it's, it's probably a mixture of haunted houses and maybe some rides and a whole area where they mix those things up a little bit of everything.
Very cool.
Probably not as big as the Harry Potter area, but the same sort of idea. Shops around the idea, haunted house, ride, different things.
Can't mess with Harry Potter. That's still their bread and butter.
Still their bread and butter. So this movie is directed by Tobe Hooper, who you may know from the Salem's Lot miniseries, or the original Poltergeist, or Life Force. The cast is made up of pretty much completely unknowns. Mirilyn Burns plays Sally Hardisty, and she plays basically the final girl of the movie in what is one of the original final girl horror tropes, kind of where all of these originated to a point. And then it stars Leatherface as basically the original masked slasher villain.
Right. Kind of the archetype that people kind of copied after that. The big, bulky serial killer. Masked serial killer, I should say.
Yeah, there had been killers with masks in the movies before, but not of this, like this masked maniac slasher style that this started. So the plot of the movie is that a group of friends are basically driving around Texas and randomly stumble upon this house and quickly get murdered by Leatherface. And that's basically the plot of the movie. There's not much else to it. It's pretty bare bones in that department, but there doesn't really need to be.
There's something about there's a family relative or something, maybe a defaced gravestone or something they're going to go check out while they're in the area, but yeah, it's not important.
Yeah, as that was happening, I was like, what are they talking like?
What are they talking about? What is this?
You're going to just visit your father's, this house that he owns, and then they get there and it's just an abandoned house. And it's like, okay.
I guess,
whatever you say.
Yeah.
So the budget for this movie was $130,000. The box office for it was $3.9 million.
Yeah, I want you to say that one more time. $139,000, right? That's
$130K.
Insanely
box
cheap.
Box office $3.9 million. So at the time, this was the biggest grossing independent film of all time until Halloween 4 years later.
There you go.
Yeah, that record was probably held for a long time in the horror zone until, found footage horror started becoming a thing where they would spend $5,000 to
Yeah.
make a movie.
Like I'm sure the Blair Witch turned a pretty profit.
Yeah, exactly. From a review standpoint, IMDb has a 7.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has critics at 84%, audience at 82%, so pretty close there. All in all, I mean, I didn't even need to go on social media to research this one like I usually do. It is widely considered to be one of the best horror movies and best slasher films of the last 51 years.
It's iconic. It's one of those ones, like, you talk to anyone who likes horror, it comes up in the conversation. Or at least Leatherface does at some point. He's up there with Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy. Is like, they're probably the big four of, like, slashers. And I think that he earned his place. Definitely from this. I almost had the actor's name who played Leatherface on top of my tongue, but then I went to Gunnar Henderson, and that's a baseball player. I know that's not right, but I think his name's Gunnar something. But
Gunnar Hansen.
Gunnar Hansen. Thank you. So it's close. Almost got it. But yeah.
I looked him up, and he was actually in, remember that movie Mosquito that we talked about a while back?
Right, yeah.
He's in that, with no mask or anything. He's just a guy. I do recall him even being in that.
Yeah. It's hilarious that, like, did I tell you that I went on Amazon Prime and Mosquito was a suggestion? I'm like, how?
Did you watch it?
I almost did. I didn't. Thought about it.
Did you end up catching this?
I didn't watch it this weekend because I had seen it midway through last year, so it's still fresh in my mind. And dude, I do very much enjoy it. I do think that the movie, like, didn't you think it's a little bit less violent than kind of like it's what's the word here? Like
Reputation.
Reputation. Thank you. Yeah. Like it's violent, but it's not to the degree you're expecting, right? You're expecting like people get like cut in half by a chainsaw, but relatively, it's kind of mild.
It is extremely mild. So that's something I immediately noticed is that, so for one, there's a surprising lack of chainsaw kills in this movie.
It's one.
Especially because, so to frame it for anybody who hasn't seen me talk about this a million times, I saw the remake in the theaters. I saw the prequel to the remake in the theaters, and I've seen a couple of the random sequels here and there. I think Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Next Generation are the ones that I've seen. And most of these I didn't go out of my way to see in the way of like the sequels to this. They were just on TV and I was flipping through. But like, you know, having seen all those, they are very violent. They're super bloody, super violent. You see many chainsaw kills. So seeing this, I'm like, okay, I got some expectations going in. Most of these characters get killed by just getting bonked on the head.
Right.
And I was extremely surprised by that. And, like, it was actually kind of to a point, almost, I don't want to say relieving, but, like, I kind of expected this to be, like, super bloody, super, I don't know, like, super brutal and gory and gruesome, you know? And it really wasn't. And so that was surprising to me.
You're expecting like Hostel level gore, and it's not that.
Right. And the only time, like, only one person gets killed with a chainsaw. Right. That was surprising.
He was in a wheelchair,
you don't even really see it happen. You see that character from behind while they're getting cut up from the front.
Right.
And the only time you ever see a chainsaw pierce like a body, basically, is when he falls down and cuts his own leg.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a movie that has a reputation for being with sensational violence, and it's not. I'm not gonna say it's not violent, but I think to what we're used to, it's fairly mild in that regard.
Yeah, very mild. So yeah, that was surprising to me. I mean, there was a lot of screaming, especially in the second half, which I had expected that. But yeah, I mean, you know, one thing that really stood out to me is that I knew this was going to be low budget, but it's super low budget. Like, the acting really came off as low budget. And the first, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or so.
You were like, oh, boy.
I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
you're like, oh,
as
boy.
they're just riding around in the vehicle together, and it's just so over the top. I was like, this needs to get better quick. But the moment Leatherface comes on screen, the whole mood of the movie changes. And when he comes on screen, it's like, I mean, it really is like truly iconic. The way he kind of pops up out of nowhere in that house and then kills that guy super quickly. and then slams the door. The way he slammed the door, like that's that was an iconic shot right there.
I had that written down right here. I was going to bring that up if you did it. That is absolutely like one of the most iconic kills in horror movie history. Kirk is the name of the first victim there. And he walks in the house, and he's kind of like this alpha male. So you're kind of thinking like, oh, he's going to be around till the end of the movie, but he is not. He makes the mistake of like tripping over like he trips over like the threshold and kind of like stumbles into Leatherface, and then Leatherface just like whack, and he goes down, and his leg starts twitching, and then he pulls him in and slams the door. Absolutely iconic. Like as you said, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
And
so things are off to the races from there, and I was like, okay, like I was relieved as soon as that happened. I was like, okay, I'm in.
And then you had his girlfriend there. What was her name?
Yeah, I didn't gather any of these characters' names except for Sally.
Yeah, Pam. Pam is the girlfriend. Like
Pam?
after Pam. See what you did. after Kirk gets it, she booty walks up to the house.
Another iconic shot.
Another iconic shot.
I think that was repeated in the remake.
With Jessica Biel, yeah, it was. And she gets in there, and then like she's exploring the house, and then there's another iconic scene where she almost gets away, and like she gets through the screen door, and then Leatherface catches her and pulls her back into the house. And as you said, like once that stuff starts happening, then the movie goes. But yeah, it's a bit of a slog to that point.
Yeah, and I was surprised that by that point, it's actually very far into the movie. I don't know, it like stood out to me. I was like, oh man, let me look at how far into the movie we are, and it's like you're like halfway into the movie by that point. So that was surprising a little bit.
But it gets you. That's a good, as you said, now we're going moment.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was really happy with this, and the whole scene where like once Sally gets captured and like she truly looks like she's like losing her mind in that chair as she's tied up. She like it was I don't know, that whole scene, the way it was shot, and so I had wondered, because I'd seen a special edition of this movie where it's just the eye. And I was like, that's strange. Why is that relevant to this? And after seeing that scene, I'm like, okay, like it's such an interesting way to have shot that scene, where it's focusing on the eyes for who knows why. I mean, I'm sure in the last 50 years, people have done essays on why, and I just watched it yesterday, so I don't really have any theory or understanding. Maybe your eyes do certain things when you're losing your mind. I have no idea, but it was a really interesting way to shoot that scene, and it was that was interesting.
Yeah, that dinner scene's also kind of iconic. Resident Evil 7 pays homage to it, like towards the beginning of that game, where there's another dinner scene that's just so obviously based on this. That scene, the dinner scene, I mean to say. It's a great. She does well too. The actress does really well. Who passed away unfortunately in 2014, which is sad, but yeah, she's really good in that scene. And as you said, she probably didn't get paid anything for this movie, but she did her role.
Nobody got paid anything. I had read that they had run out of money. I think they were supposed to spend $60,000 on shooting, and they hit 80 and had to like borrow to get that extra 20.
Crazy.
And basically what they did was sold royalties to the movie.
No, someone made out on that deal, I'm sure.
Somebody did, yeah. But, I mean, they made sequels after this, so hopefully a bunch of, well, I know most of the cast didn't make it. But hopefully, the director ended up going out and having a pretty relatively successul career. So
he did, yeah.
He made some money off those.
No, I think he must have. He was a very, not a prolific filmmaker, but he did some work, for sure.
Yeah, your favorite, The Funhouse there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a movie. I think the low budget helps out with the gritty aesthetic they were trying to get for the movie, because it looks cheap, but also like the houses they're going into, those people can't afford anything, so they're not going to have like lavish dinner spreads or anything. So I think it helps out a little bit in that aspect that they had no money, so they didn't have enough to dress up the sets. It just kind of was, this is basic. Here's some bones strewn about because they're cheap. And I think that helps.
Yeah, it certainly did. And a few of those scenes inside that house really gave me like Wrong Turn vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I think they took some inspiration from that.
They did. For sure.
But yeah, I mean, it really, I think that stuff with the way they, dressed the sets, that all was done very well.
And the cinematography was good for, again, having no money. It's impressive that they got the shots they got.
Yeah. One of the shots that really stood out to me, and I had seen it before, was the one when Leatherface is like dancing at the end of the movie.
With the chainsaw?
Yeah, and
The chainsaw.
that was such an interesting and iconic way to end the movie. You know, like you're just seeing that, and it's. I mean, I had kind of heard people reference that scene and just didn't know what they were talking about all this time. But that whole shot of him just dancing in the street, you know, waving the chainsaw around was just like, I don't know, like it really gave me like some feelings right at that moment. Like, you know, it's just such the decision to do that. And I had read afterwards that wasn't supposed to be the end of the movie, but the director had basically. He told the cinematographer to just film Leatherface just doing stuff. He was like, just film a bunch of B-roll of him. And he saw that shot and was like, oh, I know. Like he just decided I'm gonna finish the movie with this shot.
Done. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's such an interesting way to do it. And it was a really cool shot to end the movie with.
Right. And as you said, that is iconic. I was gonna bring that up too. Because it's back-to-back iconic shots. I think the shot of her, Sally, in the back of the truck, getting away and laughing hysterically because, as you said, her mind's not in a great place after that experience. But the shot of her in the back of the truck, like, losing it, to Leatherface dancing in the street, that's quite a way to end a movie.
Yeah. That was very, very, it was strong. Yeah, it was, you know, a lot of those shots there, they just gave me like a really like art house feel, you know? Like it felt almost like an art house slasher, you know?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And
like
there's a reason why...
more experimental than you might expect out of this. And I guess it's because when you think of slashers, it's a framework, you know? People aren't trying too many new things nowadays with slashers, but slashers weren't a thing like this, you know?
Weren't as prevalent, no. And you can see a lot of the things from this movie, as you said, Wrong Turn, 100 other examples out there of movies just taking little bits from this because... helped to establish the slasher formula, really.
Yep, this and then just 4 short years later, coming out with Halloween with Michael Myers, and then 2 years later was Friday the 13th, I think?
I believe so. Yeah. 80 or 81, one of the two.
After those 3 are out, like, that's it. You've defined the genre, right?
Yep. And they really haven't gone too far since then. I mean, Scream, obviously, but still, it's just a killer in a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was really happy with this, and I was glad that I was happy with it. It kind of stuck with me for a few hours afterwards, just like, you know, certain shots that were in it, and I was like, yeah, I like that. I can see why people are so into this movie, and I can see why they did so much with it. It is disappointing that, you know, I need to watch the second and third one. I heard the 2022 one is complete garbage. I've heard that too. I've heard everywhere that is just terrible. But I want to watch the second and the third one because those are the only ones that I haven't seen and see where they kind of stack up here. Because all the ones that I have seen, it doesn't seem like it really hits the heights of this ever again. But I will say, watching this, I do still really like the remake.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think they do. You know what I was surprised about? The intro, when they're using like that whole, like...
Oh, the light bulb sound, kind of?
Yeah. Because the remake does that. And I guess I had kind of always figured that the original did that, but it still caught me by surprise when they did it. I mean, I don't know. It's just so cool the way they did it. I'm glad that the remake kept that because, like, they do it really well in that version, too.
They do. It was a good thing to cherry pick to keep.
Yeah. Which, that's something that surprised me is, like, because, I mean, by this point, we've seen so many remakes. The remake, it kept the general framework, but they changed a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit more of the murder family development. Yeah, it was a very solid remake.
Yeah, and now I want to watch that, and I think I'm going to watch it for our 2003 episode.
Yeah. Did you...
They do Leatherface really well in that, too.
They do. After watching the movie, are you kind of bummed it took you this long to see it, or are you happy you've seen it and now you can just check it off your list?
No, I'm actually... I think I waited the perfect amount of time to watch this movie. Because, you know, like, one thing I always think about is the fact that, like, I've seen so many movies, and I just don't get surprised that often anymore. And so sometimes dusting off a movie that I've been kind of saving for a rainy day like this, I really like doing that now and then. And that's what I did with Near Dark last year. It's like I knew I was going to like that movie. And I was like, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to be looking for something to really surprise me because I mean, like, you know, we don't get surprised that often, you know.
No, it's nice to have it. Yeah, good. Did you know they hold that they had that whole thing like based on a true story? Do you know that story at all?
Like the Ed Gein portion of it.
That game, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
based on a true
I had
story.
known that because I have the DVD of the remake,
Hmm.
and there's like a documentary on
Oh,
it
is there?
about Ed Gein. So I had known that portion of it going in.
It's just funny that the same true story that Silence of the Lambs kind of stole from, this movie also stole from. So
Yeah, very, very loosely.
very loosely, not even the same state.
Yeah, and I don't. Ed Gein didn't use a chainsaw either.
No,
Yeah,
it's a gets your attention when they do.
yeah, that was really cool the way they opened it with the guy reading that little thing as it comes down to the
Yeah.
blurb. You know what surprised me? This movie's super short.
Hmm. Love it.
Super short. So I pounded all three of these movies out yesterday, and I watched this one with Sarah next to me, and I was like, "You sure?" And like when I told her how short it was, she was like, "Yeah, go ahead. You know, I'll just sit over here and read for an hour, and then it'll be over." And as it was starting, she was there when like this like just over the top terrible acting is happening at the beginning, and she's like, this movie's garbage.
Yeah. And that's a fair way to think about it.
Yeah, and like so by the time Leatherface even showed up, she A doesn't care about Leatherface and B had given up by that point. So she was out long before that.
I'm out.
Yeah, but I really liked it. I enjoyed the use of multiple masks. That was cool. You know, it's interesting how much they defined this character in just the first movie, you know. One of the things I had read that was that the director actually gave him lines, but he told him he couldn't say them. He's like, act out or make noises, do whatever you can to act out. This is what he's feeling at this time, but he can't say it because he doesn't know how to.
Okay.
You know, so he at least had a frame of reference on how to act in these scenes, and I really thought that was interesting to go about it that way. You know,
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
yeah. One of the things that stood out to me too is it's interesting that they made these like early characters what they were, like for Leatherface, him like kind of, you know, just the way they designed the character, like how when he's chasing her, he's like almost like wandering aimlessly, you know, like so you can see there's like a bit of like
Aloofness.
yeah, like he's not all the way there. And you read the background and all these things, and you just see what made them go this way. Like that part of the character of him like wandering aimlessly while he's chasing Sally. I read that he had basically, it was because he kept catching up to her. So the guy was like, all right, I got to find things to distract the character on my way to chasing after her, or else I just keep catching up to her.
Yeah, he does haul.
And they're shooting on film, you know, it's they can't cut it up as easily as they do nowadays, and so it's just interesting to think about all these weird little things that like affected how this character's portrayed in the movie, you know, things like that. And it, you know, it kind of reminded me of like with Michael Myers with the head tilt. You know, that's something that, if I recall, wasn't in the script. The guy just did it that day. You know, and like that's become iconic, and that defined who that character would become, you know? And so it's just interesting to think about how the iconic characters that we know so well today, how they became what they are. And a lot of times it was by accident, you know?
Or being on the set and just doing what feels right sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. I should have watched it again, but with the roof leaking and everything yesterday kind of ate into my day a bit.
Yep. That's okay. So one of the things, just to wrap this part up, is wanted to point out to everybody, there are many, many, many different versions of this movie out there. There's a 4K edition out there already. There is at least one 4K steelbook that I've seen popping around. And there's a 50th anniversary edition that includes a 4K, a VHS, and some other goodies, all inside a full-ish size chainsaw replica. Unfortunately, that thing is $300, or I probably would have bought it by now.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's massive. But the 4K edition that's in it, it has awesome artwork on it. Because I was looking at it last night, and it's actually on sale right now for $150. I was like, Maybe I could pull that. But but at the same time, like I just feel like Sarah would probably get pretty upset with me if she ever saw this thing arrive at the door.
I mean, it's pretty hard. It's gonna be hard to hide that.
There's no hiding this one.
No. Why is there a chainsaw? Don't worry about it. I'm doing some yard work.
All right, you got anything else for Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No, I think we hit all my high points I wanted to touch on. So yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. Yeah, gets 2 thumbs up from me. Happy with that one.
Speaking of happy with a movie.
Yeah, so next up is Near Dark from 1987. So this one is directed by Kathryn Bigelow, who is most well known for Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, and Zero Dark 30, which won at least one Oscar from my recollection. Really good cast in this one. We've got Adrian Pasdar, which I know from the TV show Heroes. He played the mayor or governor or whatever character. And then we have Jenny Wright, and we have, these are the big dogs in the movie, Lance Henriksen, who most people know from Aliens, Terminator, Alien vs. Predator, Hard Target, and Millennium. Also,
and
Bill
Pumpkinhead.
Paxton and Pumpkinhead. Yep, that's a good one. And we have Bill Paxton, who's known for Aliens, Terminator, and Predator, among many, many, many other things. And we have Jeanette Goldstein, who's known for Aliens, Terminator 2, and Lethal Weapon 2. Now, you might see, there's a bit of a pattern with those last 3 actors there. They were working a lot of the same things around the same period of time with the same crew. And the background there is that Kathryn Bigelow was married to James Cameron at the time that she made this movie, and he was like, hey, I just worked with this crew on Aliens, and I mean, they're basically a ready-made cast for you. They work well together, they're great actors, so I would recommend you use them for these parts. And she met them and went for it. So, that's kind of how that came about, which was a really cool thing.
Yeah, and yeah, as Pat said, this is a movie that I've known about it for years. For some reason, just missed it. Wasn't able to really, it's not super available. It's not available streaming. We had to have a friend of ours give me a copy to watch. I bought a DVD version of it, just hasn't come in yet, so that's a bummer, but at least I was able to watch it through a friend of ours. Yep. As you said, Kathryn Bigelow is the director. She won the Best Director Oscar for Hurt Locker. As you said, Adrian Pasdar, sorry. I put down here, he's the voice of Iron Man in the Lego games, which is fun.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I forgot that Kathryn Bigelow did the Hurt Locker too. I knew I was missing something.
Yeah, that's what you got her Best Director Oscar for. It's pretty substantial. That's and then that Jenny, movie. Yeah, it really is. And then that Jenny Wright girl. Apparently, she retired from acting in 1998. That's all I really had about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so basically, it's a story of this guy who meets a girl one night and tries to pick her up, and she turns out to be a vampire. So in the process of he tries to take her around places and show her around, it's a little creepy, the kind of the stuff he pulls. She's like, drive me home, and he stops the truck and he's like, kiss me before I drive you home. I'm like, I don't think that's okay. But he gets bit by a vampire first, trouble for doing that, and then he turns into a vampire, and then he has to join this traveling group of Western renegade vampires that, as you said, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, Jesse, oh my gosh, Severin? Is that how you say the Bill Paxton character's name? Something like that?
I honestly don't remember any of their names, so I'm not going to...
Doesn't matter. Well, I'm just going to say Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton for them, so because people know what that is. And, that trio really owns the movie. There's 2 other vampires with them, a young boy, and May, obviously the girl who turned Caleb.
Yep.
And they're fine, but those 3, they just own the roles, and you're just like, oh, more of them, please. There's this whole there's this whole love story between May and Caleb, and I didn't care about it. I'm like, just give me more Lance Henriksen.
Back to Bill Paxton.
Yeah, exactly. And Bill Paxton has a great time in it. He is enjoying the shit out of this role. He is eating the scenery, and he's great.
He's so fun. In that bar scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's having such a great time.
Yeah. It kills a guy with spurs, and it's ridiculous, and I love it.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of cast, I don't know if you noticed this, but I only noticed because I watched Terminator 2 with my nephew at the hotel over the weekend. And the guy that, Bill Paxton spits the whiskey in his face, that's the guy that Arnold Schwarzenegger gets his outfit from in Terminator 2 at the beginning.
Holy crap, you're right.
And
That is.
I was watching it, and like, if I had not watched Terminator 2 the day before, I never would have realized that. But I was like, oh my God, that is that guy. Just, like 5 years before or whatever.
Literally, when they made T2, they're like, we got a guy for this role. He's already done it once. But yeah,
James
no,
Cameron.
yep, exactly.
Another one in between those.
Yep, that's funny. But yeah, so that's not to like oversimplify it, but that's basically the movie. He gets bit by this girl, likes the girl. Him and May are the main characters, and the rest of the vampire group are just there. But they're so enjoyable, my friend. Like I wanted, as I was just repeating myself, but I wish the movie was just them. Like I just didn't care I didn't care about
true.
Caleb and May, but it was so cool to see like that little like the dynamic of them going around and like they kill that whole bar full of people and like there's a scene where like they're all out at night hunting and they do it different ways and it's just such a cool thing and I enjoyed seeing that. It was my favorite parts of the movie was that kind of stuff. Overall, really liked the movie, but I just wish for more, from of that. And then also, Caleb's family has decided to just drive around trying to find him because they saw him get kidnapped by when the vampires pull up in a Winnebago and grab him because he's slowly turning into a vampire and burning in the field. It's a whole thing.
It's a pretty cool shot as he's like stumbling through the field, just like starting to smoke.
Smoke coming off him, it's really cool. And then the Winnebago just somehow comes across the field and grabs him.
How about the special effects? Every time a vampire is like on fire.
Yeah, solid. I thought they were very good for being 1987, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very good. And like, like fire is hard to fake, even today.
It's hard to fake. I couldn't help but think, like, how did you do this? Because it looks like real fire on everybody. I have to imagine maybe they did like they were overlaying a real fire over the film or something.
And so stunt work was being done with obviously people in like the gel suits and everything like that. I'm sure, but yeah, it looks very well. Very well. Geez, it looks very good. There's a few like shootouts with the cops and stuff that look great, and it was a lot of fun. I was glad I saw it, and I asked you about Texas Chainsaw if you regret having not seen it yet. I regret not seeing this movie until this point. I feel like younger me would have loved this.
Yeah, just outlaw vampires.
Yes,
wandering the
South,
the truck stops of
eating what they need to, and then just Bill Paxton hamming it up and being fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a note here that originally the role of Jesse, which is the Lance Henriksen lead vampire, they offered it Michael Biehn.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? I saw that too.
He turned it down because he didn't understand the script. Which is funny.
If he had starred in that role, this would be a completely different movie.
Yeah.
It probably would have been successful too.
Probably.
I don't think it wasn't successful. It was no, it wasn't successful.
It wasn't successful.
It had it had a budget of $5 million and it made 3.4 at the box office. So no, it wasn't successful.
Not great.
No, but in all honesty, it probably got overshadowed by all the other stuff that was coming out at this point.
Right. There was a vampire renaissance at the time. There was a bunch of vampire movies, like Fright Night was around then. A couple of ones that my brain's blanking on, but there, Lost Boys, like stuff like that were coming out. If not before this, around the times. It wasn't like now where there's no like vampire movies out except for Nosferatu, obviously. But like you don't get like a vampire movie a year,
Yeah. I think that where the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was hugely successful and led to many sequels and was kind of like a big sleeper hit at the time, this one kind of was unsuccessful but has grown a bit of a cult following since then.
Completely agree. Yeah.
It's one of those movies that you don't hear talked about very much unless you're in like a horror movie circle,
Right. And it should be. It's really good. I was very happy with it. I'm glad I have the DVD coming. Someday I'll get it. Who knows?
Yeah, there's no 4K edition of this one out there.
No.
And I've been hoping that they release one, but if they don't, I might just bite the bullet and buy the Blu-ray because they do have a Blu-ray edition out there.
Right. I did notice, did you notice the Easter egg when Jesse was stumbling through the town the one night when they went past the movie theater?
No, what was it?
Did you see what was playing on the marquee?
Was it Aliens?
It was Aliens.
Nice.
Hilarious. Oh my God, I love how they did that.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna have all these actors, but let's do it again.
One thing that I noticed, did you notice the detective that he meets partway through the movie is the guy from Ace Ventura?
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I was sitting there, I looked at Sarah, I was like, that's the guy from Ace Ventura. She's like, I don't know what that is. I was like, okay.
Well, There goes my
Well, I'll
happiness.
bring it
Thank
up
you.
on the podcast then.
Nah, I missed that. That's awesome though.
Yeah. What'd you think about the score?
Great. Great music. She's well known for using music well in her movies. As we said, Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, Point Break even is great with its soundtrack.
Yep.
And yeah, it was really good. And I was very happy with it.
It
I know
was Tangerine Dream, who's
Damn it.
known for
Thank you.
Thief, Risky Business, Firestarter, The Keep, and Legend.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of them. They're so good in Thief, and I think one of these episodes we got to do on heist movies, so that
Yeah.
I can finally convince you to watch Thief.
Yep.
Thief is awesome.
I'll watch it. Yeah. So let's see here. Yeah, that's the main thing. My only main gripe is that there wasn't enough of that core vampire group traveling around and being vampires. Because once,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
one of the things I had notated that kind of is on that same vein is that at points it can be a bit cheesy, and I think all that cheese comes from the protagonist and his family.
Right, absolutely. And like, I like the sister. I thought the sister was fun, but
What almost happens to her, man? Like, isn't that when she enters the hotel with all of them?
yeah,
Like that
You're
that
like-
gets dark.
you're like, ugh. And like,
Yeah.
and Jeanette Goldstein's like, "What room's your father in?" And she's like 3, and he's like, sends Bill Paxton off. You're like, "Oh no, he's gonna murder him."
Yeah, like that is the thing. They're just drifting. They're just murderous drifters, vampires. Yeah. It's interesting too that they don't show vampire teeth at all in it, do they?
No, they don't. They show neck biting, but no like teeth going into a neck. They just like kind of like show them go towards the neck, and then there's blood and a little bit of blood. There's not too much blood in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. They didn't show really any like superpowers for the vampires at all.
A little bit.
There was one where like Bill Paxton like throws him and he goes pretty far. But other than that, like in the scene where he's in the bar and Bill Paxton like jumps up on the bar or the table or whatever, like that looks like it's legitimately just him jumping, right?
Yeah.
So like it's not like too over the top.
There's no flying.
Like, right, no flying, no I don't know.
No Twilight running like Mach speed or whatever the hell they do in that movie.
Yeah, there's no sensual vampires or seduction or anything like that. It's just gritty, dirty.
They're monsters.
Yeah. And they're evil too. And you can just tell that like they were probably evil when they were human too, right?
Oh, yeah. They weren't good people.
Yeah. But like it's interesting what they allude to with everything they talk about too. Like when Lance Henriksen gets to that hotel and he's like, "I've seen you before," and he's like, "Yeah, I came through here about 50 years ago."
Yeah, he's like, "I'll come through about every 50 years."
Yeah.
Mark it on the date book or whatever. Like that's fun. That's a little bit of world building for no reason, but it works.
Yeah, and like I think isn't his backstory that like he's from like the Civil War era or something?
Yeah, he said, "I fought for the South." And he's like, for the South, he's like, "We didn't win." And he's just like, "Yeah, he's from then." And then they just kind of laugh it off and go back to playing poker or whatever. But yeah, and like that's what I mean. Sorry, not to. I keep going back to it. I'm sorry, but I just wanted more of that, you know? Because once, like not even midway through the movie, but towards the end, not Jesse's family, Caleb's family shows up, and then the movie's kind of like him trying to unvampire himself, and then. Don't love that part. I don't love how like all of a sudden he just kind of like runs away, and then his dad does a transfusion because he's a vet and he knows how to do that.
Yeah, that's something you don't see. Like I don't think I've ever seen that before. Them being like, "Oh, we'll just do a blood transfusion."
Right.
Even with the girl, it works with the girl too.
Yeah,
even though she has like they don't follow any traditional vampire conventions with this.
Everyone has the same blood, Pat. Everyone in the world.
Because the one thing that had occurred to me when I had watched it was like, oh, that won't work on her because she's drank human blood already. But like, no, why would that matter? And
you're like, okay, I guess it doesn't matter. Well, screw me, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, the interesting thing about it is like it's got a good amount of rewatchability with it. So you know, it's definitely not a perfect movie.
No.
But it is just so damn unique that you can't help but like really enjoy it. You know.
Right. Yeah, I had a great time with it. I didn't put like the score. Yes, I did. So Rotten Tomatoes is sitting at an 83%. IMDB has a 6.9 out of 10 on it, and I feel like I'm probably closer to the Rotten Tomatoes score than I am the IMDb. I had a good time with it, and I'm glad that I got to watch it finally. I also have a thing written down here that they were going to do a remake in the late to mid 2010s, but then Twilight got popular and they decided not to. which is hilarious.
Damn shame.
It is. I'd like to see this be remade. This is one that I think is ripe for someone to go in and take the idea and do it again.
Yeah. If you were going to do it, who would you cast in the Three Vampires?
Oh, that's a fun question. That is a fun question I had not thought of. All right. You take the first one. Let me take the second one. And I'll get the third. You could. No, we'll decide the third one.
Okay. Let's see. So Bill Paxton's character, who's
Unhinged, kind of.
you know who I no.
Timothy Chalamet.
You know who could be really good in that part? Mason Gooding,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
right?
Yeah, we're both on Mason Gooding training right now, and I think that's a good call. I'd like to see him do that.
Yeah,
But-
because he's got the charisma for
He's got
like
the charm.
those parts where he's like, trying to attract the women so they can go kill them, when he's like playing like earlier in the scene, where that was funny, where Bill Paxton like dresses up and like he's got like the bolo tie and everything.
Yeah,
But then I think the key is you really have to dig into these being dirty characters, dirty people, and I'd love to see that side of Mason Gooding, have a scene or two in there where you're showing that, but like you got to make him really dirty and grimy and still get that charisma across.
right.
I think Mason Gooding could do that.
That's a good call. Popped in my head while we were talking. What about Aubrey Plaza as like the female vampire, just miserable, kind of quirky Aubrey Plaza?
Yeah, I think she could be really good. See her be like true evil.
Mm-hmm. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd love to see her get evil without like the humor in it.
Yeah. And then you're left with the big boss. Who could handle that role? My brain's going to too big of actors. Like Tom Cruise wouldn't do that.
Boyd Holbrook.
Yeah. All right, I could get behind that. And he's Southern too.
And he's Southern. He would have fought for the South.
Yes, he would have. That's a great call. All right, we did it. We did it, Hollywood. Just give us a call. Give us like.
What a cast that would be.
That'd be
it?
great. That'd be great. I'd watch that movie.
I'm in. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else for that one?
No, that's basically it. I didn't love how this kind of ended too. Like after he goes, his father transfuses him.
You like how it's like the freeze frame shot too of like him holding her there and.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's it. We're done. Okay.
I was like, yo, this is giving me Quantum Leap vibes right now with how this movie's ending.
Fair. That's a fair takeaway.
Like that just as easily could have been Scott Bakula as the main character.
Completely fair. So yeah, after
he is like a poor man's Scott Bakula too, isn't he?
I think he's a poor man's like every actor from that area. Area. Duh. But yeah, it felt like it ended too fastly. Like he gets his blood transfusion, the vampires show up to reclaim him or because they're mad at him, and then it's just like boom, over. And it's just like that wasn't that satisfying. But that's a small gripe. Overall, enjoyed my time with it. Like I said, I'm bummed I didn't watch it before, but I'm glad I have now.
8 out of 10. That's what you're going with.
I'm going 8 out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah, solid rating. I'd probably go 7.5.
That's fair. Bill Paxton.
There's a lot of dated aspects to it, but
Sure.
You're right. Like everything about, what's really interesting about it is I would love to see Kathryn Bigelow remake this.
She good.
Because this is one of her first movies. You know that she's got better than this in her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking that same idea and really running with it with a
Bigger
updated
budget.
cast, updated script.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Next up on the docket, Gerald's Game from 2017.
Yes, sir.
So we've talked about Mike Flanagan so many times. Neither of us have seen this. It came up multiple times over the episodes, and we were like, okay, we definitely need to watch this one. And so it's here, and this actually completes my Mike Flanagan Netflix watch through.
There, boy.
So does this mean you've watched all of them now to them? You haven't watched Midnight Club, have you?
My mother is honestly annoyed at me that I haven't.
Yeah. Well, so I like Midnight Club, but I don't think it's his strongest out of all of them.
Does your mom do that stuff too, where like you watch the movie, thinks you might like it, and then just hammers you over the head with it for like years until you finally watch it?
Yes and no. She would if there was anything I had ever not watched that she had.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so this is directed by Mike Flanagan. So he did all of these Netflix things. He's got The Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, The Midnight Club, and The Fall of the House of Usher. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one either.
So good. It might be my favorite.
That's the Edgar Allan
It's
Poe one, right?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably it's definitely one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe adaptations because it pulls aspects from all of his books, but it really, really has the feel that you want in something like this. It's got his feel to it, but it also has like a gothic horror side to it. But man, does it have an awesome score. I'm probably going to buy the vinyl soundtrack to that one of these days.
Fantastic.
Not from a non-Netflix perspective, he's known for Oculus, Hush, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Before I Wake, and Doctor Sleep, as well as the upcoming The Exorcist
Yeah.
remake and The Life of Chuck, which is another adaptation of Stephen King. And he's also, it was recently announced, working on a Dark Tower adaptation with Stephen King. Do you know about the Dark Tower, Dan?
I do. I remember watching the Idris Elba attempt at it, and it was,
Is that all you know about it?
yeah.
I've read all of the books, and they are really, really, really awesome. They're great, great reading. They're his version of Lord of the Rings. They tie together all of his books in unique ways, but it's basically him creating a shared universe of all of his stories in a battle to stop the end of the world or cause the end of the world, depending on how you look at it. But it's really good. It's great storytelling, really unique. It has post-apocalyptic Western vibes to it.
More
The
Westerns.
main character is basically, he designed it after like the man with no name.
Right,
Is the
Gunslinger.
hero of the story. Yeah, the gunslinger. Yeah, so that I highly recommend giving that a read. From a cast, we have Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood,
Mm-hmm.
and man, they're both so good in
Oh,
this.
so good.
Bruce Greenwood, like, he's actually been in a fair amount of Mike Flanagan stuff. He's in The Fall of the House of Usher. He's really good in it too. But it's just so interesting the roles he has chosen to take over time. But then we have cameos, really, from Henry Thomas and Kate Siegel, who are both frequent collaborators of
Right.
his. And Kate Siegel's actually
His wife, right? Yep, there we go.
Yep. Yeah. So the plot of this movie is that a woman and her husband go out to a cabin to have sexy time and do kinky things. He handcuffs her to a bed, has a heart attack. Now she's trapped, has to escape, and then terrifying things happen. And that's it. It's sort of a survival horror, but from a basic standpoint, that's the plot. But like, what I was really surprised about is how that's kind of not what the movie's about, but I won't get into that just yet. From a review perspective, we got IMDB at a 6.5 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes has critics at 91, audience at 7. Big discrepancy there. I think that has a lot to do with a lot of the themes and undertones of the movie.
Yep.
And no box office numbers because this was straight to streaming. This was a Netflix movie. So, yeah. Dan, let's start with you. What did you think of this one?
As you said, we both known of it for years. We kind of have heard because we both like horror movies, so people bring up certain things multiple times to us. And this one always kind of came up as a modern classic's kind of a cliche, but you've heard like it's a movie you have to see if you like these kinds of movies. And going into it, I went into it like knowing the basics of it. Like I knew what was going to happen, right? But the execution of it was just so good. And as you said, you've already mentioned the actors, both Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood are so very good in it. Initially, they considered this movie to be this book. It's based on a 1992 Stephen King novel of the same name, and for years they called it unfilmable because a lot of like what happens takes place in Jessie's head as she's stuck to the bed.
Which is a
and
classic Stephen King trope.
It is, yeah.
That things happening in the character's head. It's also a classic Stephen King thing where people call his books unfilmable. The Dark Tower's had that same label for a long time. Admittedly, the Dark Tower is extremely tough, but I digress. Go ahead.
But yeah, so the way they got around with that is that they just had like her envision both other versions of her and her husband talking to her from the bedside as she's obviously still stuck there. And it was very good. It was a very enjoyable movie. As I said, I love the way it was filmed. He's got such an eye for like how to like shoot things, and wonderfully acted. Yeah, it's straight to Netflix, as you said, a $10 million budget, which I think was mostly spent on the actors because I don't think there's too much else in it that would cost a bunch of money. Basically, just it's a two-person show, and they own it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a horror movie, but I think it's an approachable one too. Like it's not like a slasher like we like to talk about here, but like if you like I don't know, do you think it'd be? It's I think it's kind of approachable, like an approachable horror movie, except for the underlying storylines that people might not love.
Yeah, so I think that it is. So the reason I didn't watch this is because I knew what they were sort of hinting at, what you're probably going to have to do to get out of these handcuffs, right? And I just didn't want to watch that aspect of it. You kind of seen that before where somebody's handcuffed or trapped with something, 127 hours, Saw, those things. I'm like, okay, for this to be really considered a horror movie, they got to do something like that.
And they do.
And they do. And it was just as hard to watch as I imagined it was going to be. And I think that's the probably the hardest part to watch of this. Although there's all of the undertones that are included in it that you're alluding to in the flashbacks and everything about all the abuse that she has suffered throughout her life. And, so I think that could be a little bit tough to watch. But all in all, extremely engaging. And I think from that perspective, it's very approachable. But I was surprised with how engaging this was going to be, and it is because of those hallucinations and those flashbacks,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ties it all together. There's a dog who we didn't touch on. There's a dog that she meets. They notice on the way up to the house this wild dog in the road eating roadkill that she later feeds hilariously, like $200 steaks, and then the dog becomes a problem too because for whatever reason, one of the all-time bonehead horror movie things to do, they don't close the front door before they decide to go off to Pound Town. They leave the front door open, and then now she's chained to a bed, and she's got this wild-ass dog in the house too, who has a taste for something.
A lot of lessons to be learned there.
Yeah, close the door.
So,
have you people ever heard of?
Funny things about it, in like that first 20 minutes before she gets trapped, they do a massive amount of foreshadowing of everything that's leading to this. And it makes it like you're almost like yelling at the screen at some point, of like, okay, starving dog. Okay, right outside the house. Okay,
don't leave the door open. Yeah.
Oh, and then she's like, oh, these are real handcuffs. He's like, yeah, the other ones might break. And you're like, okay.
Possibly, maybe not do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Like so many things, like one after another, and then and then when they're in the car on the way there, and it's like all these recent burglaries and grave robberies that have been happening in the area,
Yeah,
you're like, oh, well, that's not good. Like,
no, there's no reason why you're mentioning that unless it's going to show up at some point.
Right.
Close the door.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was very good.
It's the actors, like not to again belabor a point, but they own it. Like it's literally it's like a two-person show. It's almost like a play.
She is wonderful in this. Yeah. Like she really does the heavy lifting of the movie, when she's just being tormented this whole time.
Mm-hmm. Probably wasn't a fun film for her, I bet.
I don't think it was a fun film for anybody to make.
That's
true. Henry Thomas with his scenes, with him and her as a child, like that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Those scenes were pretty tough.
I didn't like those scenes. Like I get the whole idea of like establishing that she's had abuse throughout her life, but it's like she's going through enough right now. I don't need to see this.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting too is when they allude to that one scene and they're like, but the scene in the bedroom's even worse. And you're just wondering what they mean. And then they show it. And what actually happens in the bedroom is him it was mental manipulation.
Yeah.
Where he's just toying with her and he's making her make the decisions, he's manipulating her. And the other part of it is how you see how the problems she's having with her mom are being caused by him. He's manipulating her to not feel safe with her mom so that she doesn't go to her about these problems. And you can tell that the mom thinks something is up too.
She does.
And is just not doing anything about it. And that's a pattern that she almost passes on to her daughter, you know? So that's what she does inevitably, you know? She has these problems with her husband and she doesn't address them.
Right.
You know?
Like him going off on weekend trips, like they touch on it a little bit. You know, he's going off on weekend trips. You know what he's doing. It's like, okay. So she's also been ignoring issues.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really interesting. There was a lot more layers to the movie than I think I ever expected.
Right. Yeah, it was a really good watch. Do you think you go back to it a bunch of times, or do you think you're just kind of like, I got that knocked out. Like, I'm good.
I think I will, and I'll tell you why. Because of the ending. So, I had some theories about this movie because they line it up so that you're not sure exactly what was real and what wasn't. And so I was wondering, and you know, I saw audiences were split about this a little bit too. What did you think of the ending, and how did you interpret it?
I was going to touch on it. Sorry, Jesus.
Spoilers for anybody.
Spoilers, yeah. So I didn't love the ending. Specifically, I didn't love how they established it because, like in the movie, there's this tall, looming man.
The Moonlight Man,
and he's filmed in such an unearthly way. You think, oh, there's no way that, like, you think it's a straight hallucination. Never mind of, and the husband mentions it a few times, like death. You think it's death itself there to like claim her, and like he's got his little box of bones and trinkets, and like the movie just doesn't do anything else to establish that that's nothing but something in her head. Like she's envisioning death itself. And then at the end of the movie, spoilers obviously, as you said, it's revealed that there's actually a serial killer, grave robbing man who was going around in the same area, which was on the broadcast you mentioned earlier. And the end of the movie is her like confronting him in the courtroom to kind of give herself the freedom from the abuse in her life. Which I get that, but I didn't like them making that an actual person, you know? Like, I kind of wish they would have just left that as like a hallucination, that she hallucinated death itself, instead of it being like, oh no, this guy actually showed up in the house a couple times, you know?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. So there are a couple different ways you can view this ending. So on one hand, you can view it as the straightforward ending that it is. Everything happened literally as it appeared on screen, as it's presented to you. You know, and I think that anybody that takes it that way, I think I would see why they wouldn't like that. So that's one way you could take it. Another way you could take it, and this is something that I saw online that I don't really prescribe to, but I'll tell you what it is anyways, is that the dog is not real. So she saw the dog outside, and they kind of allude to this, is that the dog inside the house isn't real. It's actually that guy. That guy is in the house. That guy's eating her husband, and that she couldn't come to terms with that.
Oh, so she envisioned the dog, even though it was Midnight
That's
Man.
her mind coming to terms with it, and because there was the scene at the end where like they go in all in about the fact that this guy's eating the men in the area,
Yeah,
and that
prefers the men.
Yeah, and that's why he left her alone, and that so they go into all of that, and so a lot of people prescribe to that theory that she could not come to terms with that, so she invented that.
I like that.
I like that more than the straightforward ending that you're presented with. I think it changes things a little bit, and it makes them a little bit more interesting.
Oh, don't they even say at some point they never found any sign of the dog? The police or something?
Yeah, she says
so,
that,
okay.
And when she had read all of those things in the newspaper at the end, she says, well, I kind of just thought that was the dog, that because like they says something about like him eating ears or something like that. I don't know. And she was like, oh, I kind of just thought that was the dog, but I guess that was him. And so, yeah,
okay.
I think it's presented in a way where that is much more plausible than things being straightforward at the end. Now,
I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I like that better. That would make more sense than just those couple scenes that the Moonlight Man shows up in. And then
yeah, and there's even that flash at one part of it.
The toes?
Where he's like licking her toes or whatever, and then she kicks at him, and she's actually kicking at the dog. So that's her mind coming to terms with that and saying like, oh, it's just the dog.
But doesn't he have like weird, like he's got like weird contacts in and stuff, right? When he's in the scenes.
Well, and that was another thing that people point out, and it's that dogs in the moonlight, their eyes sort of shine weird, right? So that's sort of him and the dog, kind of being the same, and that's why his eyes are shining in the moonlight, because it's her vision of a dog, like merging into what she's seeing with him.
Okay.
So when you see that, that's sort of a mixture of the dog and him.
I like that. I like that theory quite a bit. That changes things, I think.
Yeah, and so here's what I think about it, though. I don't think, like, even after all of that, I don't think the man was real. So, and I say that because of having seen all of Mike Flanagan's other things, and I think that he was created by her mind as like a manifestation of how her grief from the abuse of her father and husband grew over the years. That's why he's this giant grotesque being, because at this moment, this trauma she's now taking on has basically caused her to lose her mind, and she's inventing these things in front of her, and that is the thing she hasn't dealt with all these years, coming to haunt her at this moment. Now, so you're saying, what about the final scene? The final scene, to me, represents how she grew the strength to face him, basically. He represents her husband, her father, all the abuse, all the trauma, and that scene is not real. That scene is just her coming to terms with everything and facing it one final time to put everything behind her. And a big reason why I think that too is because that scene almost just seems symbolic to me. It's got an air to it of like just not being real, I think. The way she's walking down the street afterwards, and so I think all this stuff probably is in her head. She didn't tell the cops any of this stuff about the man. They don't know any of this, and she's probably just invented. She didn't read anything about this guy in the newspaper. That is another thing she's probably invented in her head.
So she's just
all of this
nuts.
Is just her way of compartmentalizing it and moving past it by inventing these things. And that's also a thing that, I mean, it's a common theme through the whole movie of her having hallucinations to come to terms with things. And it's also a thing in a lot of Stephen King novels.
That's true.
It's a thing in Secret Window. There's so many examples in his work.
Absolutely. And that would make sense too, because like, as you said, that scene with the big man in the courthouse, like she walks towards him and he's like got plastic wrist handcuffs on, and he just breaks them. He's like, made of moonlight, and like puts his hands up. I'm like, I'm pretty sure the cops would shoot him at that point, but
And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let her walk right up to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all those things, and it's because none of that stuff is real to me. To me, none of that is real. It is just her coming to terms with the situation, and it's how she's mentally chose to move past it. And because that, at the end of the movie, that's the only thing she hasn't moved past, is she's still scared at night. She's done all these things.
She still sees him at night
to move on, but she still hasn't quite moved on from that experience that she's faced. And this is her finally just coming to terms and moving on from it.
I like that too. That's better. Like, I took it grade A, straight, boom. I knew it's like with like slight hallucinations. So I was thinking like both the dog and him were real, and she just kind of like made him into this otherworldly entity to make herself feel better. But yeah, I like both of those thoughts better than just straightforward. They both make sense too. Like you said, like the courthouse scene is weird. It's not shot like a normal courthouse scene, so it could have been just something she made up one last hallucination to center herself to kind of finish off the finding herself thing.
Right. And one thing that I had thought about too is Mike Flanagan, from what I can tell, does not seem to give many straightforward endings like this. If you look at all of his Netflix shows, there's always something going on. like the end of The Haunting of Hill House, where he's got kind of alluding to the fact that like none of them ever escaped, but he doesn't come out and say it.
Yeah.
So he likes to lay all these pieces out for the audience to decide for themselves, what do you want to happen? And he lays all of the clues there for somebody to be able to choose their own path, Because the thing is that regardless of what you think of any of the of like which theory you choose, they all lead to the same place, right? Regardless of whether the dog or the man is real or fake, it doesn't impact the plot or the ending or the fact that she grew the strength she needed to overcome the situation, to overcome her fears, to face her past traumas. And to me, that's what the movie is really about. It's about her facing everything that has led to this point, because that really is what all of the things that happen at the beginning of the movie, that's what they're about, because she notices all of these things, but she doesn't say anything because she's been conditioned by her husband not to say anything. She noticed the door was open and that it should be shut, but he wanted to lead her into the bedroom, right?
Downtown, yes. Yeah, there was she definitely like has her hand kind of like pointed back towards the door, like, oh, and yeah.
Yeah, so her choice to overcome all of these things, that's why she's able to move past it. And to me, that is what the movie is really about.
And then she finally has the strength to do what's needed to get out of the handcuffs too, which we've alluded to, but that scene is an all-time cringe moment. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
So
don't want to spoil that. Never get any easier.
No, don't want to spoil it too much for people who haven't seen it, but it's an all-timer.
Yes, it is. One thing that stood out to me from the movie is that the Moonlight Man has a lot of similarities to Ed Gein and Leatherface. Being a murderer and a grave robber.
Collecting pieces of people.
Yeah.
Cannibal.
Did you notice the Midnight Mass book on the shelf?
I did.
Yep. So for anybody that doesn't know, Midnight Mass is the book that Kate Siegel's character in Hush wrote, which eventually got turned into a Netflix limited series, which was very good. Also very close to my favorite of them as well. It might be, I think I like Fall of the House of Usher better, but this is a very, very close second.
Right. It's very good.
One other thing I noticed was that in this one scene, the Bruce Greenwood's hallucination character says to her, "All things serve the beam," and that is a quote from The Dark Tower.
Really?
Yep. The beam is like there's what they call beams that are these points in the universe that it's like a river flowing to the Dark Tower. So it's almost like their way of saying, like, it's like destiny. Everything's leading you to this point. Everything is leading you to the Dark Tower, and the beam is that representation of like destiny, of the will of the Dark Tower. And so when he said that, I was just like, oh, like.
Yeah, that's good. I like those. I like those ways to interpret the ending that you brought out way better than me. Because like I wish they would have just left it as like his character, the tall Moonlight Man, was just death. But that's kind of. I honestly like that idea that he was there the whole time, but she hallucinated him as the dog. I like that a lot. That might be the way I lean now, I think. Your way was good too. Your way was good too, but.
No, and and that's the thing about it is, that's the thing I appreciate is that, like, as I'm looking at it, I can see that he has presented at least, like, and these are 3 that I'm identifying, 3 different endings, and he's laid out all of the pieces for you to decide which one you like, and all of them work, and they all lead to the same place. But so if you like that one of the dog not being real and the man is real the whole time, and because even in that scenario, it still symbolically means the reason she went to that courthouse is because it symbolizes for her that she has moved on. That's why she needs to go there, because that for her is her closing that book.
Right. Yeah. Great movie.
So that ending works just as well. And so all those reasons are why I would absolutely watch this movie again. Just to see, because we talk in 5 years and I've watched this movie 10 more times, I might not think of the ending the same anymore,
Right. Yeah. Great movie. It was very, very, very enjoyable to watch. I was glad. Before I watched Near Dark, I was like, that was way better than I thought it would be, but then I enjoyed the hell out of Near Dark. So, Yeah, I was very happy with it.
Solid little triple feature.
Yeah, nothing bad. What did you give this? If you had to give this out of a 10, what would you give Gerald's game?
8.5.
Yeah, I'm around there. I don't think, because it's a Netflix thing, they probably don't have like DVDs out of it or anything like that, do they?
They don't. Netflix is notorious for not doing that.
I know,
And
freaking Werewolf by Night's not even out yet. That's not Netflix, but
I think there is a edition of that that's out there.
sorry, getting off topic.
But Mike Flanagan actually addressed that because he said people ask him all the time about whether his Netflix specials are going to get released on physical copies, and he's like, no, Netflix doesn't do that. But Hush did, and I thought Hush was original to Netflix, but I'm wondering if it's just old enough, being from 2016, that it wasn't part of their business model yet, and maybe they just don't own the full rights to that movie.
Possible.
You know? Maybe they made that with it. That might be one that he made and they just bought.
That's possible,
you know,
yeah.
or something like that. I didn't look into it, but it stood out to me that that's a thing with that one. And that one just got a really beautiful edition from Shout Factory. So
yeah, it's a good movie too.
Yeah, but yeah, quality stuff. So you watch anything else good lately?
Yeah, Sunday after we got up and had to deal with the leaking roof, Ellie and I decided to go catch a movie just to get out of the house, just to get my blood cooled down because I was boiling a massive hate for a while.
Angry Dan
was out. He was out. We don't like him. But we decided to go catch Mickey 17.
Yeah, what'd you think of that one?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I went in there with just the basic knowledge of it that it's Robert Pattinson. His character is someone who dies and gets replaced over and over again. And it's directed by Bong Joon-ho, who of course won Best Director Oscar for Parasite, and he made one of my favorite creature features of the last 20 years when he made The Host way back when. And
quality one.
It's really good. And yeah, so we went into it, and I was so upset about the roof, the leakage, and all that. And we went into it, and I'm like, our movie's gonna be weird, and it was weird, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. I had a great time with it. I would suggest it. I think you need to give it a watch.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that one. That's what I've heard from everybody, is that it's just a wild time.
Yeah, I will say that there does seem to be a few characters. I know that the movie got delayed like a year, and there were some characters that I feel like there was more there that got cut, probably. But that's neither here nor there. Just basic review. Weird little sci-fi movie. I enjoyed the hell out of it. After we got done watching it, I asked Holly what she thought about it, and she's like, that reminds me of that other bug movie you like. So she was referencing Starship Troopers. I'm like, man, kind of.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers are great. But yeah, so when I watched Mickey 17, enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I'm probably gonna. It was like good enough to buy on like physical media, I'll say.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does it make you want to finally catch up with Parasite?
Yes, I need to watch that. And also Okja.
Oh yeah. Isn't Jake Gyllenhaal in that one?
I believe he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like a straight to Netflix one he did.
Might have to do a blind spots on that dude someday.
Yeah, he's got a couple. Have you seen Snowpiercer?
I have seen Snowpiercer.
Okay, that's really good.
It is good.
There's another one too. Can't think of it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh yeah, no. I was being vague about it because it's still in theaters. But yeah, had a good time with it. Mark Ruffalo was a bit much at times, but he's supposed to be. So. Oh yeah, Mark Ruffalo's in the movie and he plays Donald Trump. It's not even hidden. It's just straight the same person. So if you don't like that, you're gonna be thrown off by it for sure.
Yeah. I know it was a little underwhelming at the box office.
Yeah.
So that was too bad. And I saw some people saying that they blame the marketing. So I don't know how different the marketing is from the movie, but I've seen stuff about this everywhere. So I don't know if I would blame marketing. I think it's just times are hard and people are broke.
Yeah, they had about $120 million budget, and it pulled in 19 in the U.S. the first weekend, so that's not what you want to see.
No, but I mean, it's also like the beginning of March isn't well known as a box office,
smorgasbord. Yeah, no.
So I don't know. Maybe that's the problem.
Hopefully, he'll find his legs and make some of
the studio.
I'm gonna blame the studio.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Jerks.
Yeah. So you know what I watched over the weekend? Finally,
go for it.
Twisters.
Nice. What'd you think about that?
I really liked it. I
had
a really good time.
Yeah.
And was very pleasantly surprised with it.
Yeah. Turn your brain off, watch the movie, love it.
Yeah. You know what really stood out to me is that so it's a legacy sequel. It's not without its references to the original movie. you know, but they are not nearly as in your face as they have been in many other legacy
Ghostbusters.
sequels, we'll call them lately. You know, yeah, Ghostbusters, but like really, like I'm thinking about Alien Romulus. You
Right.
know,
Jesus.
but the only one that stood out to me was like, you have Dorothy in the opening scene, fine,
Mm-hmm.
you know, completely fine. It's a Twisters movie. That's like it's the technology they use in this universe that they invented. You know, like that's not in your face. I'm cool with it. There was another one where he was like, "It's good to have you back," and then she's like, "I'm not back." And that was a
Yeah.
line that they said in the original movie. And you know what? I was completely fine with that too because it applied to the situation. The plot called for it, but also like it's not like a well-known line. I picked it up because I watched that movie last year. But if I hadn't, I never would have picked that up. You know, it's not like a stay away from her, you bitch line.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just like comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. That was pretty bad in Romulus. Between that and the you know what. Um.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is a
Oh,
there,
could you imagine if they CGI'd Bill Paxton into this movie?
oh.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm sure they had a conversation. I'm sure someone brought it up at some
What do you
point.
think? Should we? Like,
Yeah. Should we? It was actually her dad that, yeah, but we didn't know about it. You know.
oh my God. I probably would have turned it off right there if that
Yeah.
happened.
They do the twins. We got twins again, which was meh.
Oh, I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, they definitely say we got twins.
Yeah. Well, you know, they had to have twins because it's Twisters. It's not just
Yeah,
one Twister.
that's true. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Wait, no, he doesn't say that in the first movie, does he? It's the other guy, the weird little. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You had fun with it.
I had fun with it. I had a good time. Sarah had a good time. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I like
Happy
it.
with it. I would watch a sequel to that
I would absolutely.
where they're just driving around trying to stop tornadoes.
Yep. Tell us.
Glenn Powell.
Yeah, he's having quite the renaissance. I don't even know his renaissance. Kind of a career breakout. Breakout's the word.
Yeah, it ain't a renaissance,
It's
but I
not
still let
renaissance.
it go.
He'll have a renaissance in 20 years. Okay.
Right,
Calling it
right.
now. Calling it now.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. Yeah, this is a vehicle for him basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his whole crew, as soon as you meet his crew, I'm just like, man, his crew is so much better than the crew that they've set up for us. Like, there's no way these crews don't join into one crew
Right.
by the end of this movie, and they
Yeah.
kind of do. I
They do.
said that to Sarah. I was like, watch like a bunch of people die, and then they're forced to join
Forces.
forces in order to defeat these tornadoes, and they kind of do. But like, so I mean, this is a slight spoiler, but like they get to it so quickly that I'm like, man, it's so weird that they've turned the bad guys like sort of into the good guys in this one, and then like 10 minutes later, it's like, oh no, they're the bad guys.
No, they're bad guys
Like,
still. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, they just introduce them as the good guys.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, like the other one, the other group is this wild kind of freelance. They don't really care about anything, but then like, oh no, actually they're donating all their money to relief funds and such.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay,
No, we're spending our T-shirt money on food for the homeless. Like,
okay, fine.
okay.
I guess it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, quality movie. I enjoyed that. It was funny too because I was on my way. I watched that as soon as I got back from that 12-hour drive,
Mhm.
and I called Sarah. I was like, I'm gonna pick up a couple cheeseburgers.
Oh, delicious.
And can you look up and see if Twisters is available anywhere? Because I was like, you know what, I need that right now after this drive. Something I can just put on. It's just gonna make me feel like I'm having a good time, and
there's
it was
nothing wrong with
exactly
that.
what I needed.
There's nothing wrong with that. Did you get the burgers from that place you've been eating a bunch lately?
Cookout.
Yeah.
I did.
Attaboy.
After that
Attaboy.
long drive. I was on that drive. I was like literally just eating like I had like a little bag of potato chips and like a little bag of almonds, and I was like, I can't stop for food. I just need to keep trucking through on this drive. So yeah, stop for cheeseburgers from Cookout.
Very cool.
Always good. They accidentally gave me bacon on these ones too, and I was like, oh man,
Accidental bacon.
accidental bacon. You know, so
Good band name.
I always say, yeah, that is a good band name. I always say put everything on it, and that's supposed to mean like ketchup, mustard, onions, all that stuff. And I'm thinking that so I don't know if it was accidental for them, but everything doesn't usually mean the bacon too.
No,
but
usually not.
that's probably the thing that happened, but doesn't matter.
Hey, I'm glad you enjoyed your burgers.
So good, yeah. All right, so let's jump into some news.
Woo.
All right, so our first piece of news, and this is something that I'm a big fan of, is that there's a new horror movie coming out called Good Boy that just premiered at South by Southwest. It's a ghost story told from the point of view of the dog of a family.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's getting good reviews.
Loki just showed up.
I'm pretty pumped about that idea. Yeah, he's pretty pumped about that idea too.
He is, yes. I like that though. That's cool.
Yeah, you know what it gives me vibes of?
What's that?
Bad Moon.
Oh, Bad Moon, the hero dog movie that we all love.
Yep. That's a movie I wish I had watched when I was younger.
Right. I'm glad that you enjoyed that at least. But yeah, definitely. I think little kid me love it as much as I do. I think you would have been the same wavelength with that one.
Nobody told me that it was a werewolf movie told from the point of view of the dog.
Right.
If anybody had led with that years ago, like I have heard about this movie and nobody told me that that's what it was about.
I'm a simple man.
Yeah, like you had me. You could have had me.
No, you got it now. You have the movie now, so.
Yeah, exactly. You know that's based off a book.
Right. Never read it.
Yeah, me either. But I guess it's way more from the dog's POV there, too. But anyways, another thing that happened in the news is the Oscars. Dan, you watched the Oscars?
I did. Well, I watched it until Hulu told me I couldn't anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, that complete disaster. So, yeah, we were supposed to do a whole episode on the Oscars last week, but we ran into some life stuff. I started a new job, and Dan had Dan stuff going on, so we decided to just not do that episode and give ourselves a week off.
People at home, it's been just one thing after another. So leading up to it, we decided to watch a couple movies, to get more of a wide range of what's out there for the award seasons. I watched Conclave. I watched Flow. Flow ended up winning Best Animated Film over Wild Robot, which I told you was my favorite movie of last year. So gave it a watch. Enjoyed it. Thought it was good. I personally still like Wild Robot better, but
you're like, but it ain't no Wild Robot.
Ain't no Wild Robot. It's a anime movie without any dialogue. It's just kind of like a cat meowing and like a chupacabra. Not chupacabra. Oh my god, capybara. A capybara, like making capybara noises. In my defense, those are similar.
The heartwarming story of a feline who befriends a
chupacabra. But it's good. Like, I don't want to undersell it. It's good.
As they search for their long-lost skinwalker best friend.
I mean, I'll write this movie with you if you want. But, like, not to, like, be a negative towards it either. It's, like, the best-looking PS3 graphic movie of all time. And it's good, but, like, I do prefer Wild Robot, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. Conclave did not make any impact on me at all. I watched that movie and went, oh, that was interesting. Ralph Fiennes was good. I never have to see that again.
Yeah. I liked Conclave, but like I can completely understand why you were bored with it.
Yeah.
And when you texted me about that too, you're like, oh man, I just can't bring myself to care about anything that's happening. Well, you're 35 minutes in. That film probably ain't gonna get better. If you don't like it now, you're not gonna like it ever.
Yeah. And I like Ralph Fiennes and he was good, but it's just like, yeah.
Ralph Fiennes is great in it.
Yeah. But it was a grind to get through that one.
Stanley Tucci, his character's name's Aldo, like my dog.
It is.
Quality stuff.
It was good. But like the actual show itself, I thought a couple of the award acceptance speeches went on way too long. Like the Amelia Perez won for the best song, and then
oh my god, that was so funny. Did I send you that when she's yeah, her like when she starts singing, I'm just like, what is going on right now?
And then Adrian Brody like just wouldn't shut the hell up, and it's just like, we get it, dude. You're awesome. Let's move on, please. I expected this I'm sorry. I expected a brutalist steamroll to happen after it won like best writing or something, or best adapted screenplay or something.
It won best cinematography. It won
best
score.
Best cinematography was the one where I'm like, okay, here we go. It's going to win best picture, best director, all that stuff. But it didn't. It was a different steamroller that happened.
Yep. Honora coming in with best original screenplay, best film editing, best directing, best actress, and best picture.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a movie.
I feel like I should finally watch that movie.
It's not super available, is it?
No, it's not super available. That was my problem going into this, is most of these movies were not super available. And I was having so much trouble finding a way to watch any of these. that I just ended up not watching most of them, and I did legitimately try. I could have tried harder with The Brutalist because I did have
So
access to
long.
them, but it was just too long. I could never find myself like, well, I could watch this, or I could watch these three things. Like,
Or I can get a decent rested.
yeah, right. Or I could get a good night's sleep.
But I'm sure it's good. I'm sure Adrian Brody's great in it. I can't. I don't see myself watching it anytime soon.
Yeah, I will one of these days. I really want to watch I'm Still Here, though.
Right.
That one, it won Best International Feature. A lot of people were saying it was really a contender for Best Picture. So that's one I really want to see. And yeah, Anora I really want to get to. And The Brutalist, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to. It might just always be on my watch list until, I'm bored 15 years from now. We'll see. You know what I did watch that was up for some awards? A Different Man with Sebastian Stan.
Oh yeah, that's not the Trump one. The Trump one's the Apprentice one. What was A Different Man?
It's The Apprentice. It's one where he's a character that has like a growth, like a deformation of his face. And this movie was the most A24 movie I have ever seen.
Really?
Like, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Have you seen The Lobster and like Dream Scenario? And like it's got that vibe the whole way through. But I don't think I'll ever watch that again. Extremely difficult to watch. But in the midst of all that, like, it is a good movie, but it's like one you really only need to watch once. It's not overly long, probably longer than it should be, but it's not like, The Brutalist long. But I bet I could cut 20 minutes out of this thing without feeling too bad about it. But Sebastian Stan is great in it.
Yeah, apparently he was really good in that Trump movie too, but I just don't have any desire to see it. I watched a movie with him somewhat recently called Fresh, I think it was called.
Yeah,
Did you hear about that? Yeah, it's good.
I heard about that, yeah.
It's a good watch. I liked it.
Yeah, that's been on my watch list for a while. You know what really drove me crazy about all of this? The people throwing fits online about not being happy with the results of this. It happens every year.
It's an award show.
The one that really drives me crazy, though, is the Best Actress one. And people basically complaining about Mikey Madison getting it over Demi Moore. And it's interesting to me because going into it, the thing I saw online most was that Mikey Madison's performance deserves to get this, but it won't. Because they said the Academy will
Achievement
give
Award?
it to, a Career Achievement Award, kind of like they've done so many times before. They do it almost every year, where the best performance doesn't actually get it. It goes to somebody who should have gotten something like this years ago but didn't, and put in a good enough performance this year.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Everything Everywhere All at Once, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, things like that, right?
Yeah, and the Academy went out and didn't do that for once, and people are throwing fits. And one of the things I've seen most is that people are saying, well, Demi Moore should have gotten it because this is the plot of The Substance, and she will never be in this position again. Basically saying that, like, Mikey Madison got it because she's like a younger, prettier woman. I think that's like
reductive
the most nonsense thing. Yeah, that's nonsense. And also, it's crazy to me to say that, this should be the beginning of Demi Moore's renaissance. It shows that this is her comeback. And I want to see her pump out a bunch of movies like this. I don't want to see her just win this movie and then, go like, okay, I got it, and go off and do nothing after this, And so I loved The Substance. But upon finishing it, it was one of my favorite performances of the year. But it's one of those that I was like, I was very satisfied that it got nominated. I wasn't surprised when it didn't win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I don't think it's worth complaining about something like this not winning. I think in many cases getting nominated is enough. What people should be complaining about is Val Kilmer and Tombstone not getting the nomination, and also Challengers. That soundtrack didn't even get nominated.
That is insane.
But at the end of the day, these things, they're voted on. They're not. These aren't decided. It's not an algorithm that makes these things.
No, it's voted on.
And
people vote.
Yeah, I think the things I've seen people say online seem wholly out of line. I haven't seen Anora, so I don't know, but I do see that everybody leading into the Oscars was saying that it is a brilliant performance. And seeing her speech and seeing how soft-spoken she is in real life, you can't help but be like surprised at some of her performances. You know.
Oh, you got to see her speech. That's cool.
Well, yeah, you did. Oh man.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
those of you that don't know, I was watching on Hulu, and Hulu decided at a certain point after Adrian Brody talked for 6.5 hours that the show was over, so we just cut it off.
yeah, everybody knows about that.
So I'm a bitch about
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's enough on the Oscars. You know, there's been so much about them and everything. So yeah, on to the next news topic. Gerald, Padalecki, and Misha Collins were added to The Boys Season 5,
Nice.
fulfilling the Supernatural reunion wishes.
Indeed.
So for anybody that doesn't know, Supernatural was on for a billion years.
Long time,
and
yeah.
was created by Eric Kripke, who also created The Boys. And it also starred Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Jensen Ackles, who have both now been on The Boys. So this fulfills the prince that was promised.
Sorry, that got me. But yeah, I never really watched Supernatural. I tried to get into it one time. I watched maybe the first 4 episodes of the first season and just couldn't really get into it. I like The Boys a lot, and I know it's a bit over the top. It's more than a bit over the top, but it's a fun little show, and I'm excited that people get that wish fulfillment to have them.
Yeah, I did watch Supernatural, but I didn't watch the whole thing. It gets bad.
Does it?
As most shows that stay on for that long do. And there was this, I think I quit where most people quit. There was this season where there was these monsters called the Leviathan, and like they're pretty terrible. And I don't think I lasted more than an episode with them. I was like, all right, well, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, you know, after watching like an episode or two, I was like, you know what? Last season ended really well. I'm just gonna leave it there. I think it's like 7 seasons or something too.
There's something to be saying about you reach a certain point of the show, you're like, I'm good.
Yeah, you're like,
Don't-
you know what?
Don't force yourself. We live in a golden age of TV and entertainment. Like, you don't have to force yourself to watch a bunch of crap to say I've watched it.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole thing was exciting to me, seeing that they're going to be in that now. So I don't watch that show, but I'm still excited about
Get
that
caught back up.
thing happening. Yeah, maybe I'll watch it eventually. I did watch the first season and half the second, I think.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I have seen it, but
Speaking of people who got left out of that Oscars in memoriam, the kid from the Boys spinoff there, Gen Z, he was left off the Oscar in memoriam too, just like our boy Tony Todd and Michelle Trachtenberg and a couple other people too. Like they really need to get someone on like quality control with that thing.
I don't know how they're so bad at this.
How are they so bad at that? There shouldn't be like 5-6 people left off every year. Like you should have someone be like, well, this person was in movies 4 years. Maybe we should mention them.
Yeah, or you know, outsource it to IMDb. They know.
Us. We can do it.
Outsource it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give us each $50,000. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Another piece of news: Matthew Lillard was recently announced to be joining Daredevil: Born Again Season 2.
It's exciting.
I have no idea who he'd be playing.
No idea. It's great to see him getting work though. Excited that there's a renaissance for you.
That's a renaissance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
This
no
was
idea.
announced before the season had launched too, so I was like, "This is funny." Like they're just like, "We know you're gonna eat this shit up. Like, let's do some season 2 announcements. It's happening."
Like frosted mini wheats in a bowl. Love it.
Have you watched Daredevil: Born Again yet?
Nope. I was trying to finish.
Neither have
I was trying to finish the 3rd season because famously I stopped caring about the Netflix show because I thought it's not going to be fit. Once they announced it was being canceled after season 3, before season 3 premiered, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, not the way that you drum up support for a show, but
No. So I've been going back and rewatching it. I am almost through season 3. Once I do
it's
that,
super good, right?
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Once I get through that, Holly threatened me with murder if I watched the new episodes without her. So we'll get knocked out probably this week.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Except the
Yeah,
murder.
maybe we'll do an episode on that at some point here. I'm sure we'll talk
That'd be
about
fun.
it once we actually start watching it. But yeah, another piece of news: NECA, who is like an action figure company. They're not like they are an action.
They
figure
are.
company.
They make awesome stuff.
Yeah, they are set to release a new version of the Game of Jaws, based
Yes,
on
sir.
the original 1975 board game.
Sorry, just had a NECA thing right there.
I have a bunch in here too.
That is super exciting because I love Jaws. I like what
Yeah.
NECA does. It's kind of right up my alley.
Yeah, it looks like a fun game too. Like I didn't read what it's about. I was hoping they'd have a video and they didn't, so I was like, I'm gonna move on. But from the picture I saw, it looked like you're like fishing objects out of
The
Jaws'
sharks,
mouth.
yeah. If he bites on the pole when you have it in there, you lose, which is fantastic. I'm in.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna buy that as long as it's not super expensive. But
Yeah,
that's fun.
yeah. I
We
went and
love
looked.
Jaws around here.
We love it. I definitely love it. I went and looked at like the old school, like 1971, just to see like on eBay if like they're reasonable. They are not
300.
reasonable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did I nail it or am I high or
You're
low?
right around that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I could see that.
yeah,
I bet nobody can find it. That's probably why they're releasing it. They're like,
yeah.
listen, people want this.
That'd be a fun one to just randomly pop across at like a yard sale or something. But
I think I might need to get that because I don't have any games like that,
no,
where you can just turn your brain off and just do just poke things and depend on mechanisms,
oh yeah. Some of my
It'd be
favorite
fun for me
games.
and Sarah.
Yeah, some of my favorite games are just the easy ones you can throw out there and play in 20 minutes. Like
You
you
remember
don't.
Break the Ice, where
Yeah,
there's like a bunch of marbles on a Kleenex and you pull the little things out until it finally like breaks and falls through?
right, right. Stuff like that. Like fun little, just throw it out, knock it out in 20 minutes. Love it.
Yeah. Operation.
I got an old ass version of Kerplunk right there, just because I thought it looked cool.
Nice. Another piece of news: Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X are both getting 4K Arrow releases with some beautiful, beautiful artwork on them.
There's one of those I might buy. And there's one of those I hate. Figure it
Jason
out.
Goes to Hell the one you hate?
Yes. Maybe I should give it another chance. I actively dislike that movie when I watch it.
You know what's crazy to me? The movies that Arrow is choosing to do this with. Because I bought Friday the 13th, 2009. Now they're doing Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X. And there's been rumors of them doing Freddy versus Jason. And it's just like, who's making these decisions?
People who are targeting people of a certain age is who. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's true.
they remember these movies from when they were kids. Let's put them out in 4K so they'll buy them again.
They're targeting late 90s, early 2000s people. Yeah, I mean that's probably what it is. I can't help but wonder if the movie rights has anything to do with it too.
It's true.
Because you know that the Friday the 13th movie rights have been a mess all these years.
Really bad.
Yeah, so I think that because Jason is in the title of Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, and Freddy versus Jason instead of Friday the 13th, I think that's like a deciding factor in the rights.
More leeway, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they get more money if they're depending on Jason and not the Friday the 13th thing.
Exactly.
But who knows?
No, I think there's something to that. I think that's 100% accurate.
That's what I was thinking. We've done our research on that topic a little bit. I did once years ago, and my knowledge on that subject is slowly fading away. I might have to dust it off one of these days.
But hopefully for a new Friday the 13th movie would be the best time to do that.
That'd be fun. They announced a Jason universe, remember? Haven't done anything with that since then. But,
It's going to
but they
be
do have
so
that,
cool.
that one thing. What is it? Or it's just called Crystal Lake?
Yep. It's supposed to be a
With,
prequel series.
Luca
Potentially.
Cardellini?
Yeah, potentially. Ooh, wow. Sorry.
Hey, you calm down over there.
Sorry. Just I don't want Jason's mom to be that attractive. I'll just say it. But it's
It is
terrible.
a problem.
What are you gonna do? I guess it's kind of like the Aunt May thing. Like when Marissa Tomei was cast as Aunt May, I knew I was getting old. You know.
Yeah. All right. Next thing on the news: more Alien Earth footage was released.
Not much, but a little bit.
A little bit. They're slowly letting that stuff leak out. Did you watch it?
I did. There was like people walking through a field. Yeah.
In there, did you see the one with like the cat where they put the camera on the cat and the cat's running around the spaceship?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fun.
It is. I'm excited for it. And like, to be honest with you, we don't need much more than that. Just keep it under wraps and then put it out. You know?
Did you see what they did to our boy Timothy Oliphant?
No,
He looks pretty weird in the trailer. I don't think he's going to be a good guy.
no, that would be surprising.
He looks like he might be an evil cyborg.
Ooh, fun.
I'm down with that idea too.
I guess I got to watch this trailer. I think I just saw like a TV clip. There's like a whole new trailer out.
So it's not a full trailer. They've just been like releasing clips here and there. And the one with it, Timothy Oliphant, is in like I think it's in like a Hulu montage where
Really?
like in the middle of it they show some Alien Earth stuff. But they haven't shown a full length trailer yet.
All right. Well, I like that.
Yeah. Next thing and last thing, David Arquette has joined the cast of Scream 7. What does this mean?
What does this mean? because it's not news I expected. Our good friend Adam thinks that it's just confirmation that it's going to be flashback heavy, which it could be.
Could be. Why would you do a flashback to Dewey though?
I don't know.
You know?
Unless there's like the whole like thing about the rumor potentially big bad of the whole overarching series. Maybe Dewey knew something about it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We really won't have our answers until the movie comes out, but it's fun to speculate on.
Yeah, so I mean there's a couple different options. There's a flashback of Dewey, which I guess it's fun, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're doing a flashback to somehow bring in Rose McGowan and David Arquette and a couple people you haven't seen in a long time, that's fun. I think my theory of the flashback is the most fun.
Yeah.
There's also the AI. A lot of people have been thinking that they're going to use AI to torment Sydney. And I think that's a definite possibility, but I hope it's not just that.
Right.
And then there's the possibility that Dewey is still alive. He did get killed in a hospital. So if you were going to just tell people he was dead and let him be alive, stranger things have happened in this universe.
I mean, we saw what Mason Gooding survived in those movies. I mean, what happened to Dewey was pretty definitive, but also, I mean, I'm not a doctor.
I mean, he wasn't killed by the most competent.
No, he was killed by the worst Ghostface, in my opinion. Now she's an Oscar winner, but that's life.
She's an Oscar winner.
God, isn't that weird?
It is weird. She's, I think, the only Ghostface Oscar winner.
Yeah. Wait, which Culkin won? That's the wrong one.
That is the wrong one. It was his other brother.
Sorry, Culkins. My bad, Culkins.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting to get. It does kind of feel like, I think we've mentioned before, like they're just trying to damage control this movie after the whole bad press of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. But maybe they can find a way to pull this off.
Well, I think a big part of this could be too that Kevin Williamson's directing it.
Right.
He's a big fan of that old cast, right?
He is, for sure.
Can he find a way to rectify the mistakes of the past?
Maybe if he could, it'd be fantastic because it's his baby to fix.
Yeah, I never thought they should have killed Dewey.
No, not the way they did it.
And if
either.
they were going to, they definitely shouldn't have done it the way they did it.
Yeah,
So
the worst Ghostface.
Jesus. All right, let's move on. Final topic: Physical Media Showcase.
Yes, sir.
Take it away, Dan.
Yes. So for Physical Media Showcase, I got one thing this week, and it was a VHS I picked up for Pulp Fiction, and it's in a weird plastic bag. It's in a weird plastic bag. It's
Why is it in a weird plastic bag?
It's just how they sold it when I found it at the secondhand store. So
Somebody was peeing on it.
Someone was pissing on it. Someone pissed all over it. So it's like a demo tape. It's like a full length retail video screener that they gave out to like be playing in
awesome.
the movie stores when you came to like rent the movies. And yeah, it says not for resale, and I don't know, it's just kind of weird and unique, and I thought I'd grab it.
I mean, somebody did resell it.
Yeah, they did. Broke some laws here, but yeah. Pulp Fiction demo tape was my pickup.
That's awesome. I love that. Where'd you say you got that?
There's this Second Time Around store in Leicester, New York called Second Time Around. And I think that's just what it's called. All right? Yeah, Second Time Around. And yeah, it was there on the shelf, and I'm like, all right, grab that.
I drove through Leicester this weekend. I should have stopped there.
It's got some fun stuff there. There's a big old nerd section you probably like a
told
lot.
Me about that a few times.
Yeah, well,
Cool.
I keep telling you.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of unique. I think there can't be too many of those out there.
No, there aren't. I'm sure there aren't. I've never heard of or seen that. Cool. You know, it's we didn't plan this, but it's so crazy that you did a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Oh, really?
Because so did I.
Oh, hell yeah.
I got the 4K steelbook of Jackie Brown. And boy, oh boy, is this thing absolutely beautiful.
Look at Pam Grier.
Yep.
Now, of movies I need to watch again, that one is highly up there.
I watched it recently, and it is fantastic. I really was like, man, this is so much better than I remembered it being. And here, I'll take for the final piece of this, you can look at the inside cover. This is from the intro scene to it.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, so I got this from Lionsgate. So this was sold out for a while. And a bunch of people had this and the Kill Bill steelbooks that they were trying to get away. And I signed up for like 3 different email lists to get in on these raffles. Didn't win any of them. Still getting those emails to this day.
Naturally, yes.
And finally it popped back up on Lionsgate.com. And I was like, all right, taking it. I hear it's great. It's got some cool stuff on it. It's got a bunch of features. So yeah, I'm cool with this. I'll watch the hell out of this.
Heck yeah.
And I hear it looks really good on 4K, but I have not watched it yet. But the style of the movie really lends itself to looking good. So I'm sure it will. Only thing that I don't like is that the digital copy that came with it, they made me download Fandango at home to watch this. This will be the only movie that's on that app for me, and that drives me insane.
I'm sorry to hear that. My family uses that app. We have about 250 movies on our shared account.
I'm a Movies Anywhere guy. I got a bunch there. I have a bunch of different apps that are connected to that account. So it connects my
Prime,
Apple TV, my Prime, all those. And I connected this account that I created to it, and this movie doesn't show up in it. And that means that Movies Anywhere doesn't have the rights to it. Yeah. So I'm going to have to only... in all honesty, I'll probably just be watching the physical version anyway, so I don't know.
It's very much a first
about it, but
a first world problem there. I have to use a different app.
Yep,
but I get that.
But yeah, this is the one I got. I got Jackie Brown.
Very cool. That's funny. They're both Tarantino things.
Yep, and I have a third one that I got that I actually am going to cover next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, because this one I'm definitely going to watch before we do that. And it's a really cool release. We'll talk about that next time.
Heck yeah.
Speaking of next time, next week we're doing the Novocaine review. So we'll be talking about that, our usual news and physical media and all that good stuff. So join us then. Please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you watch and listen. And you can follow me on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Bark Night Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see y'all next week.